Why was that for?
Huh?
Where was that for?
We're friends.
No, we're friends, just friends.
There is no worries for the Aston Martin team going into Canada. But why was Spain so bad? Why do they have no worries? And what's to come of this team? Well, first of all, why was Spain so bad? Like, why did the Grand Prix just not go really in the favor of a car that should have performed very well there? Well, a lot of factors happened. I'll go over all of them, and then we'll get into the upgrades. First of all, for Spain, it was a track that I think the Aston Martin cars should have been suited to very well. It was a track that I think they could have performed very high if they actually had a good qualifying and a couple of other things went right. A lot of people seem to forget, but in practice too, Fernando Alonso was only a tenth and a half off of Max Verstappen. Sure, these aren't the fastest laps, these aren't the fastest engine modes, but these are qualifying runs. They do count for something, and it does give us an idea of where they were going to stand. Also, in qualifying, he does make a mistake, which was on his accord. I mean, hey, even Fernando Alonso can have a bad race or really a bad weekend himself. It does happen to the best of drivers. It does happen to Max, it does happen to Lewis, it happens to everybody. And it very rarely happens to these amazing drivers that we have, but it will be seen. So he goes off in Q1. Half his floor is taken off, which apparently, through reports, was about 0.7 seconds off, or 0.10, 7 tenths off of the pace that they were supposed to have. Now that is a pretty outrageous number. And if we go off of the real qualifying gap that we've had throughout the whole entire season with Lance and him, it's been about 3.5 to 4 tenths usually. Now Lance, 7 tenths off of Max Verstappen. Would he have called Max Verstappen? No, but he would have qualified P2 with flying colors if he was that 3.5 or 4 tenths off of Lance Stroll. Ahead, obviously. Now, he actually was behind Lance Stroll by an even bigger margin of 6 tenths. So, obviously, the floor played a big factor. And he also says that P2 was on the boards if he did not make a mistake going into turn 10. Now, I'm pretty horrible with turns, but I know what that turn is, and it was a pretty crucial one. He hit a damn spot. That screwed him over. So I had him starting 9th in the race, well, 8th, because Pierre Gasly had a penalty. So already from here, we knew this race wasn't going to be a great one for Fernando unless the rain really came and everybody's kind of pace was equaled out. And we know he is a rain master. Now, the only chance they really had to win here was off of rain, and if he qualified P2. By being qualified in P9, starting from P8, there never really was a chance for him to win, and we never really got the full pace out of the car. And another factor, I mean, the Spain Grand Prix, I think just in general for Aston Martin was a complete loss. Not only did Fernando qualify bad, and he didn't have a great qualifying, I think Lance was okay. I think the strategy really screwed the two of them over, and I think Fernando was better at conserving tires, but all in all, the team let down really the drivers. Fernando had to go on a soft, hard. So did Lance. Both drivers went on a soft, hard. Now Mercedes went soft, medium, soft, but the biggest thing as to why this isn't an optimal strategy, let's say they did start off on the softs. Now that's not a bad call in my personal opinion, but staying on them for another run on a high fuel load will just promote degradation just that much more. I also think Fernando was kind of counting on the Mercedes to lose their tires really quickly, so he didn't push as much as he needed to in the beginning, and that's kind of how Russell got past. Do I think that they had the pace to fight for a longer period of time? Absolutely. I just think that Fernando was trying to conserve tires and go on for a longer stint because they were starting further back. Not really expecting for tires of the other front runners to start falling off for him to actually catch up. It was a bad race, like I said, for Fernando, in my personal opinion. I also think that the soft, hard, like I said, because the high fuel loads looked like an even worse strategy because the tires were just degrading so fast. Did the car magically get worse? Absolutely not. The actual front wing upgrades that they brought to the front nose, adding to that front wing end plates, everything they did for that really front wing actually helped them out. It was said by Fernando that even in FP2, they were holding a lot more pace, and those upgrades were working. So clearly we didn't see the extent of that, and there's still a lot more to be grabbed from those upgrades. Going into the upgrades that are going to Canada. Now, I don't have full details, obviously. We will get them more as they come, and I will explain them more as they come. But it has already been told that there are parts coming for this Grand Prix, and that Mike Crack is pretty certain that they will be back. He even talks about it in an interview saying that the actual car doesn't just fall off that quickly like that. This was a good track for Mercedes. They were really suited to this track. They kind of laid it down to the floor, and this is how they really got the best out of the car. Now, Aston Martin, complete opposite. Everything went wrong, and that's just how it ended up being. But the actual upgrades on its front wing are part of a bigger package to keep introducing to the car. Remember, the whole 75% of the car will be different. Upgrades will be coming in smaller amounts, so Canada and Silverstone are their next real packages. And we already have Fernando Alonso the very next day saying they will crush them in Canada. So I'm pretty certain they're going to bring something extra and really add upon those few tenths. We got to remember something that we need to be kind of humbled by as Aston Martin fans or people that watch Aston Martin, regardless of the fact, even if you're not an Aston Martin fan, you got to remember that this team started 9th last year. Everything that they have now, even as Fernando says, it's a blessing. Really, it's awesome that they're even at this point. They've had 5 podiums this year. Fernando has been outrageously amazing. Lance has had a couple of good performances, a couple bad. But regardless of the fact, the car is super strong. It's a base car. It's not like any other car on the grid there. Mercedes, a bunch of data, even with these new side pods. Ferrari, a bunch of data. Alpine, a bunch of data. Every other team on that grid really just enhanced what they had from the 2022 car. The Aston Martin team went with an almost different concept change. They had kind of something similar to the Red Bull last year. They still have that Red Bull type of design, but it is a different airflow that goes through the car, and they picked up off of last year. It's not an evolution of the car of last year. So yes, it's a base design, a very simple floor, a couple of very simple things. There is so much more complexity to be added to this car. And will we see it in Canada and Silverstone? I guarantee we'll be seeing some visual upgrades now to the car, unlike really in Spain. Yes, we got that front wing. Yes, we got a little bit of the floor, but it was only one little piece of the floor. The floor is where all the performance is coming from. Canada will be that spot for the floor. I genuinely think that, and I do think this car will genuinely improve a lot more going into Canada. Lastly, on to the team. Just how they have been performing in the year. Like I said, it's a blessing to us that we actually get to see Fernando really practically in his prime performing with this car. It's amazing to see. It's amazing that he can fire shots at other teams knowing that they will come back and perform to this extent. The car is still super base, and also if we look throughout the whole entire season, it has genuinely been the second best car throughout the whole entire year. Both in Miami, even in Baku, I would argue it's been the second best car. It just didn't have a great qualifying, and the actual new wing that they brought there wasn't really working. Every Grand Prix, they had a potential to get a podium. I would even say Spain had potential if the qualifying positions were different. Their tires have been great. Their car has been great. Fernando in general has been amazing for the team. For us to really give them slack and to kind of lose all hope would be a real bad way of thinking right now going into really the next Grand Prix that we have. One Grand Prix will happen. Hey, maybe even 3 or 4 bad Grand Prix will happen throughout the year. I mean, sometimes it happens. The strategy wasn't a great call. Really, a lot of things did not go really optimal for them in this Grand Prix, hence why we did not get that outstanding Aston Martin performance that we have become so accustomed to. The team really has shined this year. It's all a blessing to really just see how this team is doing, and I think they will be back to second position by this Canadian Grand Prix. It'll be a fun one. It's something I'm very excited to see, genuinely, how they bounce back. This is what defines a big team like the Mercedes, like the Ferrari, like the Red Bull. This will define them. Can they bounce back? Can they upgrade now even more and develop with the top dogs? Let's see what happens. I want to hear your thoughts down into the comments and let me know what you guys think. Please leave a like, subscribe, it would mean the world, and peace.